Hi everybody, this is Arkady Frekhtman. I'm a New York City personal injury trial attorney. And I wanted to think about what questions are my YouTube viewers and my audience, what are the most popular questions that people are asking and what do people want to know? And it seems to me like people are asking, what is my case worth? How much am I going to get, right? That's one of the questions. And the other question is, how long is this going to take? So I thought we could analyze both questions a little bit in this video, but mostly focus on the second question, how long is it going to take? And to answer that, what we have to do is we have to look at how the lawsuit process works. So in the beginning, you have the investigation, right? Something just happens. For example, a car crash happens and you investigate it. So you go to the scene, you take photographs, the client is sent for going to medical treatment like the hospital, physical therapy, possibly specialists later on once they get diagnosed with MRIs. If it's a trip and fall, you want to go to the scene also, take photographs, possibly hire a safety expert like an engineer to explain like building code violations or other technical things if that's needed, right? And then the client also is sent to physical therapy, different doctors, and you want to make sure that their medical care is being coordinated properly. Once that's all done and you have an understanding of the liability, what happened, right, who's at fault, and you have an indication of what the injury is, the diagnosis, you can go ahead and you can file the lawsuit. So you file the lawsuit, about 30 days later, the other side answers the lawsuit and appears in the case. At that point, you can go see the judge and get a scheduling order, a preliminary conference, and the judge will say, okay, the defendant has to give you discovery, you as the plaintiff have to give them document and discovery, and then they'll set up a schedule for all the depositions, deposition of the injury victim, deposition of the defendant that you're suing, and could be also depositions of non-parties or other people. As you start discovery, you're really discovering information, right? You're getting documents, you're speaking to witnesses, and then you might think, well, I need something else to prove my case. And then they give you a timeline for that. And then once all that is done, depending on the case, right? If it's a simple case like one car hits another car, you just have two people to depose, the plaintiff and the driver of the other car, the defendant. But if it can get a little bit more complicated, if you're suing, let's say, even if it's some simple case like a slip and fall, but you're suing like a big corporation, you might have a corporate representative deposition, numerous witnesses. Like we're handling one case with a slip and fall, but we've already deposed 2 or 3 witnesses. There's like a store manager, there's somebody who works in a certain department at the store, then there might be somebody else who handles the surveillance, you know, so you have all these different witnesses that you have to depose. And then once all that's done, you put it on the trial calendar, and then you're basically in line, like being in line at the grocery store for the actual trial. So that's usually how the process, in New York at least, how everything works. Now, settlement can happen at any time, and a good time to settle a case would be maybe, you know, once everything is done at the end of depositions, you can send a settlement opportunity letter. And of course, a lot of lawyers will just send a letter and say like, here are all the medical records, this is a settlement letter. And you know, those letters, they don't really have any kind of deadline, they don't really have any kind of punch to them. So the adjuster might be handling like 300 cases, they'll just kind of put that in the pile. The way I like to do it, and I've talked about this many times, is like to say, hey, pay me like X, for example, pay me $1 million by a certain deadline, like today is July 24th, so it could be August 24th at 5 p.m. If you don't, that's fine, but then it's not going to be $1 million anymore, it's going to be 3. Now they have a reason to respond to me, and you know, it puts pressure on them, it puts them in the corner. But I'll only do that if I really believe in the case and if I'm going to take the case to trial, because you don't want to be bluffing, because then you're not really credible, right? So you have to kind of stick to your guns and do what you say you're going to do in the letter. So that's one way to settle. Now, of course, there are mediations, there's arbitrations, there's pretrial conferences, there's all these things. And, you know, people also want to know, like, what's my case worth? And sometimes on YouTube, they'll text me, right? And they'll give me like, I had an RFA, like a radio frequency ablation, or I had, you know, a herniated disc. What's my case worth? I can't really tell you because there's so many different factors that, you know, are in play. So one of the factors is you, right? How you testify, how the case has been prepared is another factor. Who your lawyer is a big factor, right? If you have the wrong lawyer, if you have a lawyer that never goes to court, well, then the insurance company knows that. So they're not going to pay you the same money as if you have a trial attorney. So it could be the same exact case with the same exact injury, but if you have like one of these advertising billboard lawyers, and they know it because they're like a multi-billion dollar company, like, you know, State Farm or whatever, Progressive. They know, oh, you got this guy, they're not ever even going to go to court. They're going to just settle with us. Okay, we'll earmark this case for like 50K. But if you have another guy, and that's the guy who goes to court and gets jury verdicts, and he has like verdict after verdict, like $1 million, $3 million, $8 million, whatever it is, then they're going to say, wait a minute, he's got that guy. We got to change this. We can't mark this case for 50K. This case we got to mark for maybe up to 5 million, because either we settle with him or we pay him millions now, or if he goes to court, he's going to get even more, right? So these are not the kind of things that you as a client are going to know, but that's why, like, I make myself available. I say, hey, text me 347-566-9595. I could do a consultation with you if you need an attorney. I know who the real trial attorneys are, and if I don't, I have access to databases like the actual, you know, Westlaw, Lexis, Verdict Search, or I could just look it up. It just takes a few seconds, and I could tell you who's the trial attorney in your county, in your city, that has won the biggest results in the last 10 years for your type of case, right? If it's a truck case, if it's a brain injury, spinal fusion, whatever it is. But yeah, so I just wanted to make that clear, that so it's kind of like the interplay of the whole thing, because I don't want people to think that if they just like give me a comment and say, I have a bulging disc, what's my case worth? Well, every bulging disc case is not worth the same. So it depends on who's handling it. It depends on how it's been prepared so far. It depends, of course, where you are. Like in New York, you know, I see like fusion cases and they go for like 2 million, 3 million. But somebody contacted me from a more conservative small city in like Virginia, and I did a verdict search, and there they go for like 200,000. So it's a big difference, you know, very big difference, 200,000 versus 2 million plus. So that could be the venue could be also liability, and also how you testify, right? If you might think you're the greatest thing in the world, but maybe, you know, maybe you didn't testify so well. Maybe there's certain issues of credibility or other issues as to damages if you didn't get the right medical care. It could also be your doctor. Sometimes some of these doctors are not the best doctors, and then the insurance company will have a whole transcripts on these doctors and know that, hey, these doctors either did something that was fraudulent or had their license suspended or are just too aggressive, and they just go and say everybody needs surgery. And then the insurance companies have prior transcripts where these doctors testified in other cases, and then they could use that to cross-examine the doctor, and then the jury will think, is this guy really a legitimate doctor, or maybe he's one of these hired doctors that just says everybody needs surgery, right? And then that goes into the insurance company's theme that it's like you're trying to win the lawsuit lottery and you're doing anything by all means, right, just to win, and it's not a real case. Because ultimately, you have to show that it's a real, legitimate case, and that you're a true injury victim who was hurt by their negligence, not somebody who's trying to game the system to make money, right? Because that's not something that the jury is going to reward. They're going to punish you for that if they feel that's what it is. So there are all these different things at play. So that's why I can't tell you, you know, just from saying I have a bulging disc, what it's worth. So there's all these different, yeah, like I said, all these different things at play about how long it's going to take, about how much it's worth. But ultimately, those are the best ways to do it, is to really get to know the client, to understand like how the client's life has changed, whether it is truly a life-changing forever injury, and then to do a deeper dive, to interview like coworkers, friends, family, and then you're kind of like putting on almost like a play, right? Or you're a director of a movie. How are you going to organize it? And then you have like witnesses, you have the client, you have the client's friends, family, community witnesses, people that knew him or her before, people that still know them now, people that only know them after the injury, right? And then you strategically think, who am I going to call? I'm going to call this doctor, I'm going to call that expert, I'm going to call this friend, I'm going to call that coworker. And you're kind of putting on a play and telling a story. And there's certain themes that kind of recur in a lot of the stories, but it's a real deep dive. And so that's why like a good trial lawyer can't take too many cases, because they have to do so much work on just one case, right? So kind of that's how it works. But if you don't have too many cases, and if you do that deep dive, then you really have a sense of fulfillment, right? And it's kind of like a passion because you know the client, you know you're going to go out and get justice for them. Even the best lawyers, they go to trial, sometimes they lose. Some cases just are not winnable cases for whatever reason. So anyone who says I'm going to win every case, they're lying, right? Even that lawyer who earlier this year won the case for 34 million, right, in a simple soft tissue mild traumatic brain injury, and then he won 50 million, I think, with the burn against Starbucks. Then he tried a case in Florida. It was a tough case. He lost. He got a defense verdict, right? So everybody's going to lose. So there's no such thing as somebody who always wins, but it's like fighting the fight and preparing the case the right way. So I hope this was helpful. But those are the two big questions, right? How long is it going to take and how much am I going to get? And I think those are the factors that you have to examine in order to come up with an answer. And it's always going to be different depending on your case, right? It's kind of like asking a doctor, are you going to cure this patient? And he can't just say, the patient has like X, Y, because the patient has headaches. Are you going to cure him? Well, I don't know, right? It could be a headache that's a brain tumor. He's going to die. He's terminal. Nobody can cure him. Or it could be a headache that I give him an aspirin and he's better tomorrow. So nobody can answer it from a comment. You really have to do a deeper dive and really handle it individually. But I hope this was helpful. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Let us know what questions you have. Let us know what videos you want to see. And we are here for you. Our goal is helping serious injury victims and families. All the best, everyone. Bye-bye.